As the years pass, the nature of love often changes. In the beginning, marriage is filled with shared dreams, long conversations, and the feeling that you truly see and are seen by the person beside you, but over time, something quiet can start to shift, especially for women. That once burning closeness begins to cool. The little things you used to do for each other fade, and sometimes you look across the room at the man you've shared your life with and feel more like strangers than soulmates. If you've ever felt an ache you couldn't explain, a weariness that's grown over years, or a sadness that your husband just doesn't seem to notice anymore, you are not alone. Many women silently carry these feelings for decades, unsure of how to talk about them or even if they're valid. This video is for you. Today we'll gently explore 7 deep and honest reasons why so many women begin to resent their husbands as they grow older, and what can be done to reconnect before it's too late. It's not about blaming anyone. It's about giving voice to what's been buried and honoring the emotional truths that deserve to be heard. If this message resonates with you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our channel, Senior Wellness, and share it with someone who might need this reminder. You are not invisible. Your feelings matter, and it's never too late to feel close again. The hidden weight. She carried why emotional labor creates deep resentment in later life. By the time a woman reaches her 60s or 70s, she has often carried an invisible burden for decades, a kind of quiet, tireless labor that rarely gets acknowledged. This emotional labor isn't about cooking meals or folding laundry. It's about remembering birthdays, managing family dynamics, smoothing over conflicts, keeping the household running, and being the emotional anchor for everyone else. For many women, this becomes a natural part of life, especially during the years of raising a family. But with time, this constant giving, especially when unrecognized, can turn into quiet exhaustion, and eventually, that exhaustion may become resentment. Let's take the story of Joan now. 74. For most of her adult life, she worked full-time as a school administrator while raising 3 children. She made the doctor's appointments planned. Every family holiday remembered her in-laws' anniversaries and even managed her husband's social calendar. She didn't complain, at least not out loud. But as the years passed, Joan began to feel a growing emptiness. Her husband, while hardworking and loyal, rarely thanked her. The little things like preparing his favorite breakfast, helping with the grandkids, or keeping up with family traditions had come to be expected, not appreciated, and that's what hurt the most. Over time, she realized she didn't feel seen, not truly. She had poured so much energy into holding the family together, yet never once heard, "I know how much you do." Instead, there were assumptions that this was just her role, and that realization that the person she supported for decades had stopped noticing was quietly devastating. This story isn't unique to Joan. It reflects what so many older women experience, the weight of emotional labor that was never named or valued. Men often assume that being a good provider fulfills their role. And while financial support is vital, a relationship isn't built on finances alone. It's built on shared effort, care, and emotional recognition. When a woman gives and receives little in return, not even acknowledgement, it chips away at her spirit. Over the years, small moments of being overlooked begin to pile up. The dinner she made after a long day, the forgiveness she offered after an argument, the patience she extended when things were hard. Each moment once filled with love begins to feel like obligation, and eventually like sacrifice. This slow erosion of emotional connection can leave many women feeling more like caregivers than partners. When they reflect on their marriages, they may not feel anger right away. Instead, it's something deeper, a quiet grief for the connection that once was, and a longing to feel appreciated. Just one more time, the tragedy is that these feelings often go unspoken. Because women are taught to be strong, to endure, to keep the peace, but endurance without recognition becomes a silent burden, one that many carry into their later years. So if you're a husband watching this, or someone who cares deeply about your partner, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, have I truly seen her, thanked her, listened? Without dismissing. And if you're a woman watching this feeling, seen in these words, know this. Your efforts mattered, they still matter. You have held families together often without thanks, and that speaks volumes about your strength and compassion. As we age, we deserve more than routine. We deserve connection, kindness, and to be appreciated for all that we've given. Let's carry this message forward, not as blame, but as an invitation to reconnect. And for those navigating these emotional shifts, always feel encouraged to seek guidance from a trusted counselor, a support group, or even your doctor. Emotional health is just as important as physical health, especially in this stage of life. This is what senior wisdom is all about, recognizing the quiet truths and honoring the lived experiences of older adults. If this message resonated with you, please like this video, subscribe to Senior Wellness, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Your support helps us continue creating heartfelt content that truly speaks to your life. When peace becomes more valuable than socializing. As we grow older, something subtle but profound begins to shift within us. In earlier decades, the pull towards socializing, attending gatherings, chatting on the phone, staying connected often felt like a central part of life. We craved company conversation and the feeling of being included. But with age comes clarity. And one of the clearest truths that many older adults quietly discover is this peace begins to matter more than people. It's not about becoming cold or distant. It's not even about cutting ties. It's simply that the value of solitude starts to outweigh the demands of constant connection. The silence that once felt empty now feels like sanctuary. The stillness of your home becomes more comforting than a crowded room. Consider the story of Elaine, a 74-year-old retired nurse who once had a bustling social calendar. Her days used to be filled with lunch dates, weekly calls, and seasonal get-togethers. At first, it gave her a sense of purpose, something to do, someone to talk to. But over time, she began to notice something shifting. The conversations grew repetitive. The laughter felt forced. Some friends seemed to call only to vent gossip or complain. Slowly, those interactions stopped bringing her joy. At first, she felt guilty, turning down invitations, not responding right away or saying no to plans, used to make her feel like she was letting someone down. But eventually she realized something important. Her time was her own, and she no longer needed to explain why she was choosing calm over chaos. Elaine began to find comfort in quiet moments, long walks in nature, sipping tea with a good book, listening to music that spoke to her soul. These were no longer acts of isolation. They were acts of self-care. Instead of running on social obligation, she began running on inner peace. This transition isn't always easy to explain to others. Sometimes friends may misinterpret your absence or slower replies as disinterest. But it's not about shutting people out. It's about tuning inward. It's about honoring your need for space, for rest, and for emotional simplicity. Many people over 70 begin to realize that they no longer want to keep up with relationships out of habit. They want connection that feels nourishing, not draining. And if that means fewer phone calls, fewer invitations, fewer check-ins, that's okay. In fact, that's often a sign of emotional maturity. There's also a deeper truth here that's often unspoken. Some friendships, even the long-standing ones, no longer align with who you've become. As you grow, your needs, interests, and boundaries evolve, and it's perfectly natural if some social ties no longer reflect where you are in life today. Choosing peace doesn't mean you're lonely. It means you're learning to enjoy your own company in ways you never did before. It means that your inner world is rich enough to hold your attention, that your own thoughts, routines, and quiet joys are enough, and that is something truly beautiful. If you've ever felt bad for stepping back from a friendship or choosing a quiet evening at home over another dinner party, remember this: you're not giving up on connection, you're just choosing a different kind of wellness. One that honors your energy, your time, and your heart. In this stage of life, you have nothing to prove. You don't need to keep up appearances. You get to define what brings you peace. Whether it's a walk in the garden, a favorite radio show, or a quiet evening of reflection, these moments matter. True. Senior wellness is about aligning your life with what feels good for your spirit. And sometimes that simply means choosing stillness over stimulation. Fewer friendships, fewer disappointments. One of the most overlooked truths about aging is that emotional peace often comes from having fewer but more meaningful relationships. As we grow older, we gain wisdom, not just about life, but about people. And one realization many seniors quietly come to is this: fewer friendships often mean fewer disappointments. Throughout life, we all experience friendships that fade, shift, or disappear entirely. In our youth and middle years, we often feel pressure to maintain large social circles. We put energy into staying connected, reaching out, checking in. But by the time we reach our 70s or 80s, we begin to question whether all that effort is really worth it, especially when the return feels small. Take Gerald, for example. At 78, he had spent most of his life being the one to call, to organize get-togethers, to keep the connection going. Over time, though, he noticed a pattern: many of his friends didn't return the same energy. They rarely called first. Some stopped reaching out altogether unless they needed something, and some relationships, once warm and lively, had grown one-sided and stale. At first, Gerald felt hurt. He wondered if he had done something wrong or if people had simply forgotten him. But eventually he realized the deeper truth: he had been giving too much of himself to relationships that no longer served him. This realization is not uncommon. Many older adults find themselves in similar situations, always the giver, rarely the receiver. And over time, that imbalance breeds quiet, resentment, even exhaustion. When you feel like you're always the one reaching out, always the one who cares more, it can chip away at your peace. That's why so many seniors today are making a different choice. Instead of clinging to a long list of social obligations, they are choosing simplicity. They are choosing to step back from relationships that drain them and instead focus on the ones that truly nourish their spirit. This isn't about shutting people out, it's about honoring your time, energy, and emotional well-being. It's about understanding that just because a friendship lasted for years doesn't mean it's still healthy today. By letting go of relationships that feel forced or unbalanced, many seniors find a surprising sense of relief. There are fewer expectations, fewer disappointments, fewer moments of feeling let down by people who no longer make the same effort. Instead, what's left is space. Space to enjoy your own company, to deepen the few relationships that really matter, and to reconnect with the parts of yourself that were once put on hold to accommodate others. And here's something important to remember. Choosing to step away from certain friendships doesn't mean you've failed. It means you've grown. You've learned what your heart needs and what it doesn't. True. Senior wisdom lies in understanding that your worth isn't tied to how many people you surround yourself with. It's found in the peace that comes when you let go of what no longer uplifts you. And often when you stop chasing connection, the right ones find you, people who respect your space, who value your time, who give as much as they receive. So if you've ever found yourself questioning why certain friendships feel more like work than joy, trust that feeling. You're allowed to choose ease, you're allowed to protect your peace, and you're allowed to prioritize. Senior wellness over social obligation. In this season of life, fewer friends doesn't mean less love. It means deeper love, more real moments, and far fewer disappointments. As time grows shorter, your time becomes more precious. One of the most beautiful and sometimes heartbreaking truths about aging is the realization that time is no longer something we can take for granted. In our younger years, time feels infinite. There's always another weekend, another lunch with a friend, another chance to reconnect. But once we reach our 70s and beyond, we begin to understand something more profound. Every moment matters, and how we choose to spend that time becomes one of the most important decisions we make. For many older adults, this shift brings clarity. We start asking different questions. Questions like, does this bring me joy? Is this truly how I want to spend my time? And perhaps one of the most liberating answers is this. You don't have to spend your time maintaining friendships that no longer feel meaningful. Friendships, like all relationships, take energy. There are phone calls to return, visits to schedule, and conversations to hold, even when your heart may not be in them. While some connections are worth every moment, others quietly become obligations, relationships we maintain out of habit rather than true affection. Take Richard, for instance. He's 82 now and was once the life of every gathering. For decades, he filled his calendar with social commitments, making time for everyone, neighbors, old classmates, extended family. But slowly he began to notice a change. The conversations that once felt lively now seemed repetitive. Many social visits turned into hours of listening to complaints or gossip. He realized that some of the people he was spending time with didn't uplift him anymore. They simply filled time. One afternoon, after returning home from a lunch that left him more drained than delighted, Richard sat down and asked himself a powerful question. Is this really how I want to spend my remaining time? The answer came easily. No. He didn't want to spend his precious hours doing things that didn't bring him peace or joy. He wanted his time to feel sacred. That's when Richard made a quiet but life-changing decision. He gave himself permission to say no. He stopped feeling guilty for skipping meetups he didn't enjoy. He let go of the need to explain why he wasn't as available anymore. Instead, he reclaimed his time and began to fill it with what truly nourished his spirit. He started gardening again. He picked up old books he had meant to read for years. He walked without rushing. He even joined a small local art group, not to socialize, but to create. And the unexpected result. He felt more alive, more connected to himself, and more fulfilled than he had in years. This is the quiet wisdom that often comes with age. You begin to understand that not every friendship must be preserved, not every invitation must be accepted, and not every person deserves a place in your limited time. In this stage of life, you have earned the right to be selective. You have earned the peace that comes with choosing how and with whom you spend your hours. This isn't selfish, it's intentional. It's a powerful form of self-respect and one of the most underrated paths to peace. Senior wellness. So if you find yourself questioning whether certain social ties are worth your time, trust that inner voice. It's not unkind to step back. It's not wrong to say no. It's simply part of growing into the version of yourself that honors peace over pressure, presence over performance. At this point in life, your time is a treasure. Spend it on things that make you smile, people who fill your cup, and moments that leave you feeling more whole, not less. Because in the end, senior living isn't about how busy your days are. It's about how meaningful they feel. True companionship begins within. One of the most powerful realizations that often comes after age 70 is that the most fulfilling companionship you can have is the one you create with yourself. For much of our lives, we're taught that being social is the key to happiness, that we must always surround ourselves with people in order to feel whole. But many women discover, often quietly and unexpectedly, that some of the richest, most peaceful moments come not from being with others, but from simply being with themselves. For decades, society tells us to focus on others, our spouses, our children, our coworkers, our friends. We give, we accommodate, we nurture. And while that season of life can be deeply rewarding, it can also leave little space for personal reflection, solitude, and growth. When we finally reach a stage where our time is our own, we sometimes realize we don't know ourselves as deeply as we thought. That's when the shift begins. Take Eleanor, for example. At 76, she spent most of her adult life as the social glue of her family and community. She planned gatherings, kept up with old friends, and made sure everyone stayed connected. Her phone was always ringing, her calendar always full. But somewhere along the way, she started to feel tired, not physically but emotionally. She began to notice that many of her friendships were built on routine rather than meaning. Some friends only reached out when they needed something. Others spent entire conversations complaining or gossiping. Eleanor started to feel like she was performing rather than connecting. One afternoon, after yet another phone call that left her feeling empty, she made a quiet decision to spend more time with herself. At first it was difficult, the silence felt unfamiliar, but soon Eleanor began to enjoy the freedom of doing what she truly wanted. She started taking morning walks, listening to music that moved her, and writing her thoughts in a journal. She visited the local library and rediscovered her love for poetry. She even took herself out for coffee with a good book. And something beautiful happened. She didn't feel lonely. In fact, she felt more grounded and at peace than she had in years. That's the truth. Many people overlook solitude is not the same as loneliness. Choosing to spend time alone doesn't mean you're disconnected. It means you're finally connected to yourself. When you embrace your own company, you stop looking to others for validation or entertainment. You stop measuring your happiness by how many people you hear from in a week. Instead, you begin to cultivate a quiet strength, a sense of inner calm that no one can take away. And here's the beautiful part. When you become comfortable in your own presence, the relationships you do attract tend to be deeper, easier, and more genuine. You're no longer chasing friendships to fill a void. You're simply sharing your peace with others who respect it. This is what shattered senior living can look like at its best. Not loud, not crowded, but full of intention and gentle self-connection. It's a stage where you get to choose how you live, who you let into your space, and how you show up for yourself each day. So if you've ever worried that pulling back from social circles might leave you feeling isolated, remember this: the best companion you'll ever have is already with you. You've earned the right to cherish your own company, to nurture your own spirit, and to create a life that feels whole. Even in the quiet moments, this kind of companionship doesn't fade with time, it grows deeper, and it just might be the most healing and empowering relationship you'll ever experience. Because in the world of senior wisdom, sometimes the most meaningful journey is the one that leads you back to yourself. The quiet pain of feeling taken for granted. One of the most difficult emotions a woman can carry in a long-term relationship is the feeling of being taken for granted. Over the years, many women give deeply through acts of love, care, and support, only to wake up one day and realize that these efforts have quietly become expectations. What was once done out of love is now simply assumed. And with that shift, a heavy truth settles in. Appreciation has faded. At the beginning of many marriages, gratitude flows easily. A husband might say, "Thank you for dinner," or "I really appreciate everything you do." Those simple words mean so much. They affirm that love is seen, that effort is noticed. But over time, some men stop expressing those words not out of cruelty, but often out of habit or complacency. This slow erosion of appreciation is something many women feel but struggle to talk about. They continue cooking meals, managing the home, remembering birthdays, supporting their husband's emotional needs, doing all the little things that hold a household together. But somewhere along the way, the thank yous vanish, replaced by silence or worse, expectation. Consider someone like Joyce, a 72-year-old retired school counselor. For decades, she poured herself into her marriage. She learned her husband's favorite meals, remembered his appointments, took care of family matters, and offered emotional support during tough times. But now when she does something thoughtful, it's met with a nod or no response at all. One evening, after preparing a special dinner, She asked her husband gently, "Do you even notice what I do for you?" His answer was a shrug, followed by, "Isn't that just what you always do?" That moment broke something in her. Not because he said something harsh, but because he said nothing kind. The pain of being taken for granted isn't loud. It doesn't always come with arguments or tears. It's the quiet ache of feeling invisible in your own home, of realizing that your love has become routine, and the longer it goes unacknowledged, the more resentment it builds. What many husbands don't realize is how deeply these everyday efforts matter. Making a meal, folding laundry, listening with care. These aren't small things. They are the glue that holds the relationship together. When they're not appreciated, it feels as if the woman herself is not appreciated. This isn't about wanting constant praise or dramatic gestures. It's about being seen. It's about hearing a simple, "I see how much you do," or "Thank you for everything you've done all these years." Those words have the power to breathe warmth back into a marriage. The emotional withdrawal doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly through years of being overlooked. And over time, a woman who once gave freely starts to hold back, not to punish, but because she's emotionally drained. She no longer feels the joy in giving when it's not received with care. In the world of senior living, where every moment counts, appreciation becomes even more important. A kind word, a genuine thank you, a thoughtful gesture. They go further now than ever before. They remind your partner that you still see them, still value them, still care deeply about the bond you've built. So if you've ever felt this quiet sadness, the sense that your love is being taken for granted, know that you are not alone. Many women feel this, and it's not selfish to want to feel appreciated. It's human. And to those watching who may recognize this pattern in your own relationship, perhaps this is a gentle invitation to pause, to reflect, to offer a word of kindness to the one who has stood by your side through the seasons of life. Because in this chapter of senior wisdom, it's the little things spoken with love that make the biggest difference. Realizing they've grown apart. The quiet distance between lifelong partners. One of the most heartbreaking realizations a woman can have in her later years is that she and her husband have simply grown apart. This isn't something that happens all at once. It's a slow drift, year after year, built from routine silence and unspoken feelings. And by the time it becomes clear, the distance often feels too wide to cross. At the beginning of a marriage, there is connection. There are deep conversations, shared dreams, a sense of being on the same team, but life moves quickly. Children come along, careers demand attention, the responsibilities of everyday living take over, and if a couple doesn't make a conscious effort to stay emotionally close, they begin to grow in different directions. Many women notice this first in small ways. The conversations that used to last for hours become short and practical, focused only on bills, errands, or the news. Questions about how they're feeling, what they're thinking, or what they hope for slowly fade away. Over time, she feels less like a partner and more like someone just living in the same house. Take Ellen, a 74-year-old retired therapist. In the early years, she and her husband talked about everything, their dreams, their fears, the future they wanted to build. But now she finds herself sitting next to him in silence. When she brings up something important, he offers a distracted response or changes the subject, and in those moments she feels invisible. That emotional distance is its own kind of loneliness. It's not loud or dramatic, but it's just as painful. It's the kind of loneliness that makes a woman wonder, does he even know who I am anymore? And perhaps more painfully, does he even want to know? What's even more difficult is that many husbands don't realize anything is wrong. They mistake peace for happiness. They believe that as long as there are no arguments, everything must be fine. But silence isn't always peace. Sometimes it's a sign that one partner has stopped trying because trying no longer feels worth the effort. Another reason for this growing apart is the evolution of interests. Many women continue to grow well into their 60s and 70s. They develop new hobbies, new insights, a deeper sense of purpose. They want to travel, volunteer, learn, or simply live with intention. But if their husband isn't growing alongside them, if he's content to stay in the same routines, it creates a painful divide. She begins to feel held back, as though she's outgrowing the very relationship that once gave her strength. It's not that she doesn't care for her husband anymore, it's that the version of him she once connected with no longer seems present. What makes this experience so difficult is the mourning that comes with it. Many women grieve not the loss of the marriage itself, but the loss of what it used to be. The laughter, the shared goals, the feeling of being truly seen. And when those things fade, what remains is often a quiet, aching emptiness. Still, there's hope. Recognizing that distance exists is the first step toward healing. Emotional closeness can be rebuilt, but it requires honest conversation, mutual effort, and a willingness to see each other with fresh eyes. For some, that might mean rekindling old routines. For others, it could mean seeking new forms of connection, or even reaching out for professional guidance. No matter. The path, one thing is clear: every woman deserves to feel emotionally seen, valued, and understood, especially in the later chapters of life. The essence of senior wellness isn't just about physical health. It's about emotional well-being too. And in this season of life, emotional connection matters more than ever. So if you've ever looked across the room at your partner and felt like a stranger, know that you're not alone. Many women have felt this, and in recognizing it, you give yourself the chance to explore what you truly need and what kind of love still feels possible. Because, as senior wisdom reminds us, connection at any age is worth nurturing. As we move through the later chapters of life, it's natural to reflect on our relationships and how they've changed. But remember, awareness is a gift. It gives us the power to grow, to reconnect, or to rediscover what truly brings us peace. No matter where you are in your journey, you deserve to feel seen, valued, and emotionally fulfilled. If this message spoke to your heart, we invite you to be part of our senior wellness community. Please, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. Your voice matters and your wisdom is always welcome here.